Hey, welcome everybody. It's Dave Schroeder again with Newrez Voices. We're here with Tom Ahles. Thank you, Tom, for being with us today. Tom is one of our top partners in the country with Edge Brokerage, as well as the National Director of Membership for AIME, which is the Association of Independent Mortgage Experts, which Newrez is also a partner with. So we're super excited to be with you today, Tom, and hear your perspectives on all things, leadership, the wholesale industry, your career track. So welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, excited to spend some time with you guys. I know Newrez has really done just an outstanding job over the past couple of years of expanding not only in the wholesale space, but really, as we mentioned, even partnering with AIME, which made a big statement, in my opinion, to show the integrity and the involvement that you guys want to have in continuing growing with brokers. So excited to talk with you today, David.
That's awesome. Well, hey, one of the things that I always find interesting and that I personally have loved about my journey within the mortgage industry is that there's always a story for how people ended up in this business and doing what they're doing. So can you just share with us, like, how did you get into the mortgage business and what led you to Edge and AIME?
Yeah, 100%. So you're spot on with that. I don't know anybody besides, I'm hoping maybe my daughter, that says, wow, when I grow up, I want to be in the mortgage industry or be a mortgage broker or a loan officer. That's normally not the path, right? For me, I don't differ from that. I started in this industry in 2001, and I have a background in hospitality industry. So getting out of graduating high school, going into working in a service industry, working in nightclubs and restaurants. And that was kind of, I was unsure of what I was going to do for my future, but that was what I was doing at that point. And as I grew in that industry, I became a director of operations, kind of the head of a national chain of nightclubs. I ended up in Minnesota. And I really fought hard to not come here, right? It was, people were like, okay, that's the frozen north, it's Arctic. Really didn't want to come here. But after I ended up here in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, I really fell in love with the culture of the city, and really, it's just an amazing place. I really enjoy it. Met my wife here, which obviously helped me want to stay here even more. And come 2001, I was sick of working in that industry. And I started at a brokerage in 2001 called Novastar. And they were a small independent retail outfit. And it was back then, here's a telephone book, here's a phone, get on it. So that was my start in this industry. And really from there, I kind of tried to find niches. It was always my thing to do things a little bit differently. And I found a niche at that point in working with a lot of the investors that I had from my previous career and trying to find ways to help them expand into real estate, either buying investment properties or just investing into real estate, and found a core group of investors. And that's what I focused on. So if we fast forward from there, bounced around a few times to really start to get my education. As you know, even with any profession, you don't really get your education until you start working. So I spent about 4 years working in different facets, from consumer direct to referral-based business, and opened up a company in '04. And in '04, we opened up a company called Mortgage Banking Corp and worked as one of the leaders within that company and developing strategies to really do what we do today, right? To help consumers to find ways to differentiate ourselves. And then '08 happened, and '08 was really probably one of the most influential times for me because I learned the most, right? Everything kind of transitioned at that point and regrouped. I actually moved back to Ohio for a short period of time, which is where I grew up at, and went to work for a bank there. And I didn't like it, right? I just didn't feel like a career. It felt more like a job for me. So my wife and I decided to move back to Minnesota in 2010. In 2010, I took a job working for a bank here in the Twin Cities, and started focusing on how do I build a referral-based business, right? If you look at even what happened in '08, the market collapsed for people that were doing consumer direct, but people were still buying, right? There are always things that people are going to be buying property. So for me, I tried to really learn from those around me and establish a referral based business, which I learned a lot from the bank that I was working at because I was surrounded by people that were doing that for 20 years, right? And then that led me to my business partners that I have now, and really starting with Edge Home Finance. We worked for a small brokerage out of Las Vegas that we kind of were doing exactly what we're doing now, right? We were independent. Most of the originators in this industry, it doesn't really matter what company you work for, right? You are the business. People call you because of your involvement in the community, your involvement with that social group. And um, we then at that point, Chantel Hacker, who's the president of our company, she's like, okay, well, we want to break off. We're going to do our own thing. And that's when Edge Home Finance started. So that was in 2011. And we really started out with the simple mission of, you know, how do we just do things the right way? How do we serve clientele in a way that's transparent, in a way that we're competitive, in a way that we have unlimited options? And from there, you know, fast forward now 15 years, 14 years, we've continued to grow on the same principles of we really just want to be able to do things simple, honest, transparent, and we've continued to grow that way because what happened was even our very first team member that we hired came on board and we weren't necessarily looking to grow, right? When we started, it was more myself, Chantel, Chris, we were loan officers, right? That's what we've done our entire career. Both of us have been business owners prior, but we really just wanted to focus on, you know what, we're just going to write loans. And we knew a lot of people. So what would happen is those people would come to us and say, hey, you know, Tom, I really like what you're doing. They would be referring deals to me that they couldn't close at the bank that they worked at or the IMB that they were with. And they would end up sending me the referrals on loans that they couldn't get done because of overlays. And for too long, those people would say, you know what, why can't I just come work for you? Like, okay, well, fine. We'll find a way to make this work. And, 2011, we hired our first team member. And then that team member had other people. It was kind of the same thing. He'd start getting deals from other loan officers in the industry. They would say, hey, why can't I just come work for you? So we created a way for us to be able to scale from the team members that we have, right? Basically kind of compensating them, if you will, for recruiting as well as originating. So we created kind of a dual facet for not only building originators, but really giving them the power to look at the business as an entrepreneur, right? If they can bring somebody on to the company, we want to be able to reward them for that. And we have a recruiting program here that's worked really well for us that we reward them for people that they bring on to the company. And that's really been since 2011. I've just kind of kept my head down and continued focused on the same mission, which is how do we help our local clientele? How do we help loan officers and giving them the transparency, giving them the optionality that the broker channel offers?
Wow, there's so much in there, but I will say, I love what you said about the adversity of 2008. I've talked to so many people that, when the market gets tough, whether that's, even now over the last couple of years or the folks that stuck it out through the 2008, that's when people really learned and kind of built a reputation in the business. So that really resonates with me. The other thing I was going to say, and this kind of leads into my next question, is you bring up the referral of how you've grown. And, I wanted to ask you about the growth of Edge, because it's just been phenomenal to watch kind of that acceleration of the growth. And, when you're growing like that, sometimes companies lose touch with who they are and a culture. And So the fact that you're getting so many referrals tells me something about it. Good people refer good people, but maybe you could speak a little bit about as you're growing, because you got a lot of people who aren't there all in one place. How do you maintain a great culture of excellence and of service to customers and the things that are so important to you when you started?
Yeah, it's one of those that's very hard to you can't necessarily, you know, how do I say this? It's not something that you can mandate or dictate on how your culture is going to be at a company. It really flows down from the top of leadership and what the values are within that organization. And like-minded people end up sticking together. It's like if you look at, they say the sum of who you are the five closest people that you're around.
Yes.
Well, as you know, in this industry, it's more than a job. It's a lifestyle, right? It's to the point where it's not a 9 to 5. If you're an originator, you're answering your phone on the weekends. Your spouse or significant other have to really also be okay with that, because it's not the 9 to 5. It'll be 9:30 at night and somebody has an offer that's due by 10 p.m. and you need a pre-approval letter. And you're sitting down and maybe having dinner with your spouse, or you're helping your kid with your homework, and everybody has to be on page for it to be a successful business as an originator. So a lot of it for us, the culture aspect, really stays, and we attract people because that's who we are as leaders, right? For me, I've stayed on the front lines of the company since we started. So I'm still originating. Last year, I finished sixth in the company out of 1,200 originators, while still doing a lot of other job duties, just to be able to, one, not only be involved in the business itself, but not get to the point to where I'm removed to where I don't see the struggles, or I don't see the pain points, to where, hey, if we're having an issue on something, especially as a broker, it's advanced tremendously, and even communication like we're having today, right? If you went back to 2008 and looked and say, okay, if you were a broker prior to '08, none of the executives talked to the brokerage companies. It was a way just to, kind of feed business to them in a sense. And there wasn't the relationship on, how do we serve each other better?
That's right.
And I think what happened was, not only have we seen that happen from the lender broker relationship, it's created that environment for us too, to where our loan officers know, hey, we have a real partnership. This is a partnership with Newrez, to where if there's something that isn't right, you guys care, right? They have the ability to pick up the phone. I can call Tony, or I can call you, or Megan, who's one of our outstanding account executives for our account, and we're going to work together. It's not the broker of old, where, it was like, okay, we send it in, we hope we get our approval back. If not, we just have to keep submitting with no communication. Things have really changed in this industry that's helped really foster the culture that we have, which is small business, right? I want people that I partner with on my team to know that it's their business, right? They're in charge at the beginning of the day of, what are you going to accomplish this today? We're not going to be calling you and saying, hey, we have set metrics that you need to hit. If you're not calling 50 people, everybody does business a little differently. And we kind of want to be the home to where we support that, but it has to come with the mentality of really being at the very best of your job, being the best at what you do.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And Tom, I think, you emphasize such an important point there about relationships. Whether it's with, you and I, Edge and Newrez, or it's the relationship that the loan consultant has with the customer at that community level. There's so much automation and digital resources and whatnot. But at the end of the day, people still want to talk to a human being about this important transaction. They want somebody who has confidence, that they can have confidence in. And so I just think that is the superpower of elite loan consultants.
Without a doubt.
Lenders.
I mean, it really, if you look at the majority of the clients that we serve as a company, last year we did around a little over 18,000 transactions. We didn't spend $1 in marketing. So every one of these clients are coming from the people that my loan consultants, maybe they go to church with them. Maybe they're in an exercise group with them. They're in a B&I meeting together. They're trying to help each other. But what you have with that, which is, I think we'll probably get to this later, that can't be replaced, it's that emotional connection. I want to know that I can depend on someone. If I'm in battle, if I'm in the military, I want to know someone has my back, right?
Right.
And when a home buyer is making the biggest purchase of their career, I don't want to have to worry about just, okay, I can just click a button and get a mortgage. That's not realistic, right? Every deal has a different DNA. There's things that AI at this point or computers can't calculate that require common sense. And not only common sense, it requires explanation and really understanding. So to me, it's relationships are everything, right? I mean, that's what is what makes the job so much fun, but also to me, what makes it from being a job to a career. Because when you become good at this, you don't end up having to make phone calls. Your people are calling you. As people know in your community, you do a great job for one person, they're telling 10 people, right? And those 10 people, then they're going to start calling you when it becomes time because they become your sales force.
Yeah. That's so true. And with 1,200 loan consultants with Edge, you're seeing like such a broad diversity and of how people perform, levels of performance, how they're approaching their business, all that, and all of it kind of gears towards those relationships, like you say, and make the phones ring. What are you seeing as I don't know, the behaviors, the things that, call it the elite level of loan consultant, that top 10%, if you will? Are there common things that you see people doing all the time? Because I tell folks all the time, as well, that everybody wants to be great. Everybody wants to have relationships. It's just a matter of, are you willing to put in the work every day to do it consistently over time? So what do you see in that regard, and how do you help people kind of elevate to that level?
Yeah, I think, if I isolate, and I'll say we just had our President's Club trip, so I got a chance to spend time with, I'll say the top 20, 25 of our team members here. And there are two main factors that I've noticed with any top level producer, or maybe three. One of them, they don't do it for money. Okay. I think if you're chasing money, you end up, people can tell, right? It's like I've heard some pretty good stories recently with like breathing on people with commission breath, right? To where what you're doing it for. If you're doing it just to make money, people will sniff that out. All of our top producers, and I think the top producers at any company, they do it because they have a calling to serve. They really enjoy helping people. And it's not about, oh, I'm going to make X amount of money on this client. They are more excited about the fact of, wow, I'm going to change the trajectory of this family's life, right? You can look to see what homeownership does and even the stability for their kids being in a school because their parents own a home. What is the success chart of homeownership? Our top producers really get that, right? They find more joy in serving than they do making money. And I think when you're chasing that, money follows success, right? That is the key to success. The other part is they're on the phone constantly, right? This is really something to where it's there isn't a secret recipe. It's not being on the phone doesn't mean that you're just calling and trying to be a telemarketer. If that was the case, you would see more extended car warranty sold than anything in this country. And that's not the case. It's the point of just having relationships and, really caring about people and saying, hey, David, what happened this weekend? What'd you and your family do? And really what sinks in is people start to say, okay, this person actually cares about me and my family. And being able to have those conversations and constantly be expanding on your network is really one of the key factors. Now, we've been lucky enough in our age that the best marketing that we have is free. It's social media, right?
Right.
If you go back to the early 2000s or even, the 90s, where in order to get any sort of outreach like that, you had to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars on billboards, on radio ads. A simple loan officer at this point who has 5,000 or 6,000 connections from those they went to school with, those they went to college with, those that are in their community, you have a sphere of influence now that you get to touch every day for free that didn't used to exist. And understanding how to leverage that for business, right? Not necessarily talking nonstop about, oh, I have this for a rate or I can do this product. It's storytelling. I was able to help this single mom of 3 overcome this and talking about the story that people then can relate to that and say, okay, you know what? I didn't think I could buy a house, but if Tom said that he just helped a single mother of 3, I'm a single mother of 3. Maybe you should reach out and have that conversation. So, those are really, in my opinion, kind of the top attributes besides being self-managing, right?
Yeah.
No matter what type of middle management, if a company has it that's trying to inspire and lead someone, it's still up to them to get up on the day and get the mindset of, I'm going to have a good day today.
Right.
I'm going to enjoy what I'm doing, because it's like, even for this, I was looking forward to our meeting, right? If I showed up to the meeting and was like, yeah, David thinks that, you can tell someone's energy. And
That's right.
most of our top producers, even though you get punched in the mouth every day, because this isn't a job that's easy. It's not the same thing every day. Every deal has a different DNA. Every offer is a little different. Every experience is different, but it's the mindset of, I'm excited to do this. I'm excited to help someone, and
Yeah.
really just leading with that energy.
Yeah. And look, let me, since you're bringing that up about kind of your own passion and excitement every day. I mean, we've touched on a few things already in our conversation. You're a great father and husband. You're involved in AIME as a national industry advocate. You're a founder and loan officer that performs at the highest level of these. What what gets you fired up every day, and how do you? Because you know everybody wakes up fired up every day, but how do you find the drive to make yourself get excited and perform at the highest level every morning?
You know, it's not a choice anymore. People depend on you, right?
Yeah.
If you're an originator and you have a contract and someone's closing in 30 days, that person's depending on you. And for me personally, that's a privilege, right? It's an honor to me that someone is depending on me, and I don't want to let them down, right? For me, it's really that simple. I know today when I come to work, I've got some clients I have to help, but I have some originators I'm trying to save, that are maybe not seeing the true picture of what's going on in this industry. Um, they're depending on me to help them. And for me, when someone puts that trust in me as an individual, I take it serious, and I want to let them down. And I care to be able to really uphold my own reputation in this industry, because no one's going to remember how much money I made or how many loans I closed, whatever else. They're going to remember how did I make them feel, right? Did I make you feel like I cared, that when they called me at 8:30 at night on a Wednesday night before I'm getting ready to go to bed and they needed something, did I care or did I blow them off? And that's
Right.
really the differentiator. So to me, it makes me excited that I get to be in a position that people need me, right? And it sounds kind of selfish, but people like to be needed, right? It's
Yeah.
why we end up getting married. It's why we end up having, that feeling of somebody needing you is important. And you either take that duty on, um, with a fierce attitude of, I'm excited for that, or you don't. And it's just a commission. But for me, I really look forward to it on a daily basis of not letting anyone down.
Yeah. Love that. That is awesome. The responsibility for what you have and not making it a choice. So speaking of depending, we've got you mentioned earlier Megan, our superstar AE that supports Edge. I know she's a difference maker for you. Maybe you could talk a little bit about kind of Newrez with Edge. Like what does Newrez do really well? And how do we kind of help support loan consultants, and maybe uh how is that different from other lenders? Everybody's got kind of their own sauce, and I think that's again the superpower of brokers, that they have the ability to go to lots of different lenders and fill in the gap for the unique needs of any customer. So how do you view Newrez fitting into that formula for Edge?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it is our superpower, right? I mean, at Edge, we have over 160 different lending relationships. And for a lot of loan officers, it's a blessing and it's a curse, right? Because the reality is we don't need 160, right? You need a couple of good on the A paper side, a couple of good ones on maybe a little bit of scratch and dent, non-QM. It comes back to relationship. And right, when we talk about Megan has been with our account for, I don't know, 10 plus years, if I'm not mistaken. And she's kind of taken the same approach that I take. She works hard. And she actually, if you call her, it's not, I'm just going to direct you to where the guideline is, right? She wants to be used in a way that she has a skill set. And let me explain to you how this is going to work. And it's always about overcoming obstacles, right? If I call and I have a manual underwrite, or there's any sort of scenario that in your guys's wheelhouse of the products that you have, can we do this? How can it be done? And is she going to give good advice to be able to help that loan officer create that referable experience? Because for us, if we throw something against the wall, and I'll say for a lot of account executives, it's the funnel method, right? Yes, we can do it. Yes, we can do it, but only a small amount actually makes it through the funnel. With Megan, that hasn't been the case. She is okay in saying, no, this is not a loan for Newrez. I don't think this is going to fly. And to me, you can sometimes get more business by saying no than what you can get by saying yes. It was that attitude of, whatever it takes for me to help you make sure that you're going to have a referable experience, I'm there for you. Right.
Right.
And that's just her character, right? Even though I think she might be on vacation this week, or it was last week.
I don't
If
know
I
how
meet
that
her,
happens. What's going on?
she still answers her phone. She still is one of those to where it's a lifestyle and she really gets it. Right.
Yeah.
So it's been outstanding. I would love to say that there is something unique that Newrez does. But the reality is that it's the people that are unique, right? At the end of the day, we all have the same Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines, or Ginnie Mae if we're going government. But it's the communication to get from start to finish. How do you feel? Do you feel supported? Do you feel that you're getting good advice? Are you getting that accurate information to where at the end of the day for an originator or loan consultant is, I need to give an experience that's a referable experience, because that's where you do a bad job, they tell 100 people. You do a great job, they tell 10, right?
Yeah.
Where you can't afford to have a bad experience in this industry. And more importantly, I think one of the biggest differentiators is when things are going sideways or south, right? When something's not working properly, do you duck your head in the sand, or do you address it and say, okay, here's the issue, right? You got to fill out a 1003 accurately, and your information was wrong. We're trying to work with you to get it done. She's also not afraid to call people out and say, hey, you got to coach you up a little bit here. Here's why you're having these issues, right? So to me, it's been an outstanding relationship from that point from Megan, but also from senior leadership, right? Tony has also been very involved as well, knowing, hey, Megan always is an account executive. They don't necessarily have all the power. They're there to set expectations. But every now and then, there's still opinions in this industry. And if we don't agree with that opinion, do we have somebody else that's willing to step in and take a look at it? So we've seen senior leadership in the last few years with Newrez really step up and say, you know what, we do care. I do want to hear what that problem is. Let me know if we can look at this, or actually get on the phone with you and hear your side of the story of why you feel passionate that this is a wrong impression or a wrong opinion, and how do we work to try to resolve it?
Right. I think one of the things, Tom, that stands out to me in you saying that is that you really shouldn't even know who the lender is on, call it 8 out of 10 deals, because everything goes great. The separation and the differentiation of who your partners are and who you want to work with are the 2 out of 10 that go in the ditch, and how committed are people to getting it out and making sure that customer is taken care of and that the loan consultant looks great for their partners. So
spot on. I mean, if everything was so easy, like the 80% of it, we probably wouldn't have a job.
That's right. That's where the automation, we're here to solve those things. So that's exactly right. Well, let me pivot a second into AIME, which we talked about a little bit. And, I think there's a lot of things that are special about AIME, but I'd love to hear it from you. There's lots of different industry or advocacy groups and industry groups within any given kind of segment of the market. And certainly that's true in mortgage and wholesale. But, I think AIME is very differentiated in what it does and the message, but let's hear it from you. What drew you to AIME and what do you think makes it special today and its mission?
Yeah, I would say that there are other advocacy groups out there, industry groups. For me, I really like game because it's more of a community. It's not an event that we see each other once or twice a year. Um, we have a community of brokers that really team together, right? And it's rare. You're not going to see that in the retail world where you have, two massive companies coming to get together to say, how can we serve consumers better, right? How can we work together to alleviate some of the issues we're having? So me, that was one of the things that really drew me to it from the beginning, right? Uh, as it sits today, under our current leadership, Jonathan Haddad, it's been outstanding because his mission's really simple. We want to help people close more loans. And how do we do that? What are the things that we need to overcome, right? One of the biggest issues right now is really making sure we're taking care of our database, right? It's not, we can blame the retail organizations for, well, the retail company called and sold it. Well, whose fault is that, right? And he's very blunt with this fact of, what, it's your fault, right? You didn't stay on top of it with your client. You didn't give them the options. And what do we need to do to get better as an industry? So that's one of the main focuses. The second is prior to us having a group where we had daily correspondence, we didn't know a lot, right? You wouldn't know what new technologies coming out. You wouldn't know maybe there's a change in legislature that's going to affect us. Prior to '08, we had different organizations, but it wasn't as communicative. Communicative, that's the
Yeah.
word. Where for our group, we do a lot of social aspect, even online. We use Facebook for it. And, we'll have 14,000 people communicating a day on, hey, you know what? I've got a really tricky deal. I've got this, this, and this. And instead of, if you're a small broker owner, maybe you got 3 to 5 team members, why not leverage the other 15,000 members that are really driven to serve? Hey, I want to be a part of a community that's going to help others. And it's not, we don't pillage our community, right? I think that's probably every industry, the hardest part when you deal with trade organizations is them kind of being their own worst enemy, right? And that's one thing I like about it. You have a bunch of people with an abundance mindset that are there to serve, that are there to help others, that are there to learn and get better and share ideas. So the collaboration and cooperation between our membership is something that I've never experienced. It's not only helped me as a leader, but it's also helped a lot of my loan officers because maybe I have someone who speaks a different language and they wanted to talk to somebody else at a different company that speaks that language. Well, guess what? That might not be my expertise, but now you can go to a group of people with 15,000 originators in it and say, oh, okay, here are 4 lenders that do this. This is what to look out for, to where it's really their strength in numbers, right?
Yeah.
And we have that, and we have the community. And I think that's the biggest differentiator between us and, say, a different trade organization is we're not a 2 or 3 times a year meeting, get together, see a couple of emails. We're interacting on a daily basis on trying to help each other do more business, serve more consumers, and really make sure that we continue to grow in this industry.
Yeah. Gosh, I think that is so well put because I don't, yeah, you really put your finger on it. I do think it's the community. And what always stands out to me about AIME is just the energy level. Like it's tangible in the social posts and the people who are involved with it, whether it's yourself or Jonathan or whomever. You can tell people are just super passionate about what they're doing and helping the broker community grow, which is contagious. I mean, those kind of attitudes really
To be
are.
honest with you, it's fun because
Yeah.
the normal way of doing business is I'm holding all these secrets, right? I'm not telling anybody my recipe. And the reality is none of us are doing anything that unique, right? I mean, it's really can I do more if I actually talk with somebody else and maybe they have a good tip for me and I have a good tip for them. And what happens is between that cooperation and collaboration, you end up doing better together. And that's really been the fabric of AIME that I have loved. It's how do we collaborate, cooperate with each other for all of us to do better and rise up.
Yep, absolutely. So kind of to that point, we've seen, and you and I just here have kind of given a little bit of the history of wholesale over the last 25 years, just kind of how things have evolved. And certainly after 2008 was kind of a low point for the wholesale industry as far as just the number of brokerages. It really thinned things out. And since then, call it since 2012, it's just been every year grow, 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 grow. Folks gravitating to being independent brokers. So what do you see as being, and you're at right at the forefront of that in AIME and helping people make that transition. What are you hearing and seeing that's driving more people to choose this channel?
The reality is, I think when technology has advanced, things have become faster and things have become cheaper, right? If you look at even Amazon, why do people not go to the store as much anymore? When they click a button, it's faster and cheaper, right? Technology in our industry has taken the time for origination of, maybe it used to take 8 to 10 hours to originate a loan. Now it takes maybe 2 or 3 hours. And when you're understanding, especially for a lot of self-generating loan officers, you don't need the middle management, right? It's just that there isn't the need for it to where I think if we fast forward 10 years from today, things are going to continue getting faster. Optionality and pricing flexibility, right? Two things that I think that are going to always be at the forefront of someone who's in the field working, trying to continue to build those relationships. And they need those things in order to survive and thrive in today's market.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that's one of the things when folks ask me, what do they think is driving wholesale growth? And I do think it's just such a massive difference, the capabilities. And you mentioned it like with social media, the reach and marketing. I mean, the things that an individual loan officer can do for themselves today versus what was available 15 years ago with, with everything that's going on the internet, whether it's the actual platforms that wholesalers are offering, or marketing through social media or whatever. It is just, you're operating at the level that large companies used to, as an individual.
There really is the advantage. I mean, how many people outside of a major sporting event that they're watching, more people spend time on their phones on social media than they do watching television. So it's and it's more hyper local, which brokers primarily, they dominate their own little markets.
Yeah. So, speaking of technology, that brings a ton of opportunity. It's also kind of always in the background as it also brings the challenges, and folks are talking a lot these days about AI and, what's that going to do to the loan consultant, or how is that going to make the loan consultant obsolete? And, I think both of us would agree it's not. But to that end of kind of challenges in the marketplace, what do you see as the biggest challenges? Call it, 12 to 24 months, the biggest challenges for loan consultants in the market. And, to the extent that you can think of one, how can Newrez be a part of helping us solve that?
I don't know that we're going to see too many different challenges over the next 12 to 24 months than what we've been seeing already, especially for brokers, right? It really just comes down to the basics of no matter the worst time in the market, it comes down to mindset, right? There were people in '08 that had the best year of their career. And why? It was mindset. It was really them controlling the controllables. With AI specifically, it's making things faster. It's making things easier. Being an early adopter to a lot of those things will be key. I've started using it a lot. There's a lot of ways that it's going to continue making things faster. Now, is it going to replace us? I don't know, right? I would say no, but at the same time, what I have learned over my career, I don't know everything, right? I don't have all the answers. If it does, I'm going to tell you this, it doesn't replace 100%. Let's just say that it takes all day one certainty, right? And it has it to the ability to where, um, some of that business can be done. Well, look at how much non-QM business, manual underwrites, things that are not going to be that way, or a borrower that switched jobs and everything isn't so easily calculated to where you got to pull out the old pad and piece of paper and try to pull out, okay, here's my averages I'm coming up with, here's the trend, to where there's still always going to be a place for an individual to make a risk assessment and prepare that analysis to an underwriter and say, okay, here's what we have. This didn't trigger an automated approval. To me, even if the industry was cut in half, there's still a ton of business out there, right? So even if technology made things faster and easier and cheaper and cuts out 50%, we're going to focus on dominating on still crushing that 50% of it and making sure that we're influential in that space.
Right. So you brought up AI. The thing that I've been seeing, and I'll full disclosure, I've done it myself, is making my own action figure toy using AI. Aside
Yes.
from that, uh, what's something interesting that you're using AI for to build your business?
So multiple things that we're using it for. For one, condition sheets, right? We all have different skill sets. For me, I'm not a great writer, right? It's just not my skill set. I'm good at communicating it. Sometimes I'd rather do voice to text than typing something out, but AI has been phenomenal in really taking something that maybe from a condition sheet to where I can have this sent directly to a processor, but ran through it to say, okay, simplify and prepare the email to the client. Yeah. You don't have to worry about that processor, then making grammatical errors. It makes them more efficient and it kind of puts things in a simplified form to where the more you're using it for whatever task that you're trying to do, the smarter it gets. It's computer learning. It's going to understand. It might not know what an LOX is or an LOE at first until you explain it. So that's been one of them. The other is really even identifying for me on talent that we're looking to hire. I can plug in somebody's data and say, okay, tell me where their best opportunities are, right? And it'll say, okay, this person has left you this amount of reviews. This is your best person. You need to spend more time focusing your energy on serving this realtor than spending time with, this person based on what it'll pull for reviews from different websites, whatever. So really, we're still at the tip of the iceberg on what it can do. I'm not a huge AI guy. I'm old school, so I still just focus on the relationships, but I also see the advantages it can do to make us more efficient.
Yeah, well, you just gave me two new ones, so that's pretty cool. Thanks. Uh, so getting towards the end here, but one of the most important things that I want to ask all of our guests, and particularly yourself, we've talked about kind of the long road and the journey and the exposure to so many different people over the years. Who's been your most influential leader that you've worked with, and what stood out about them in your career or your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say if I keep this mortgage related, one of my first managers and I was actually in when I moved to Ohio in 2000, after 2008, there was a gentleman there that was probably one of the better managers I've ever had because I don't like to be managed, right? It's kind of why a lot of people come to the broker side. I don't want somebody, although he was very good at it. And I was complaining one day about something that wasn't going right, and he came in and he put a mirror in my cubicle. And he's like, I want to be able to show you who's responsible for all of the problems that you're having. And I want to show you who can solve all of them. And I want you to where if you're not hitting the numbers that you're looking to do, I want you to understand that there's only one person that cares. And, at first I was kind of pissed. I'm like, this guy really just put a mirror in my office. Um, but then it worked, right? If I'm sitting and I'm looking at myself in my cubicle and I don't have I can tell the energy. Am I somebody would want to get a mortgage with? Am I somebody would want to join? Am I doing what my responsibility is on something to where something went wrong? Did I have my 1003 filled out correctly? Did I do the job to the point to where, so it was really, to me at that point, understanding the power of what I control. And it's, it's really more looking in the mirror than trying to look and point fingers and blame other people. Right. So,
Right.
that gentleman and I are still friends to this day, but that was probably one of the biggest turning points in my career to understand that it's up to me, right? If I wanted to have a successful week or a successful month or a successful day, how am I showing up? So
I love that. I love that. And what's interesting to me is that when I ask that question of people in any format, there is kind of a lean towards leaders that we have early in our career. For whatever, I think maybe because we're empty vessels at some point, we're younger in the industry and we just sop this stuff up. But it's fascinating to me. And I think, to your point of, we have an obligation when we wake up in the morning to serve others, and that's what can get you fired up. And as leaders, we should think about that, of just young people coming into this industry or young people that we have the opportunity to work with. What a massive legacy we're bringing, that, like, 20 years from now, Tom, when you and I are sitting on the porch, drinking lemonade and looking at the sunset, somebody's gonna be talking about us, hopefully, and say,
yeah.
hey, that guy made an impact. That guy was a turning point in my career. And that, I think that's something that should get people fired up, like you say, every day. That that's how you kind of build a legacy and really make an impact.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, Tom Ahles, thank you for your time today on Newrez Voices. Anything you'd like to say to wrap it up for us?
No, just really, I really appreciate the support that Newrez has not only given Edge, but also stepping up and being a partner with AIME. I think there's a lot of companies that have, don't take the initiative to say, you know what, we're gonna go all in and really support this. And watching the changes from the leadership level within Newrez on how they have not only seen that wholesale is something that they want to partner with, but showing that in the actions. And you guys have just done a great job on that, and we're grateful to be partners with you both here at Edge and also at our trade association of Independent Mortgage Experts.
Awesome. Well, the feeling is mutual. So thanks again for your time today. And until next time, see you later.